I used to think the biggest cost of a boring day was time. Just hours gone, hours I would never get back. Hours spent inside something that didn't feel connected to where I actually want my life to go. And that is still true. Time matters. But lately, I've started to realize that boring days can cost something else too. Something that may be even more dangerous. Energy. Because when a day feels flat, when the work feels repetitive, when your mind is understimulated but still tired, you can get to the end of the day and realize the part of you that still needs to build something has very little left to give. Hi, I'm JP, and one of the things I'm learning in this season is that if I'm not careful, the boring days won't just waste time. They will quietly drain the energy the build still needs later. Boring work does something strange to you. It doesn't always crush you. It doesn't always stress you dramatically. It doesn't always leave you feeling broken. Sometimes it just leaves you flat, mentally dull, emotionally underused. Like your body has gone through the motions, but your mind has not been given anything meaningful to hold on to. And that kind of fatigue can be deceptive because it doesn't always look serious. It doesn't announce itself the way crisis does. It just quietly follows you home. You finish the day. You finally have time. You finally have the space to turn toward the thing that actually matters to you. And instead of feeling focused, you feel drained. Not because you worked on the wrong thing after hours, because the wrong thing drained you before you even got there. This is part of what makes boring days difficult to explain. Nothing is technically wrong. No disaster happened. No major problem appeared. No dramatic failure occurred. It's just that, by the end of the day, you feel like there's nothing sharp left in you. Nothing eager. Nothing hungry. The ambition is still there in theory. The dream is still there. The calling still matters. But your inner world feels muted. And that matters because the build does not only require time, it requires attention, clarity, intentionality. And when your day leaves you mentally flat, those things become harder to access. You can still show up physically, but internally, you may not be bringing your best. That's the part I've been thinking about a lot. The build still needs something from me. It still needs discipline. It still needs focus. It still needs consistency. It still needs that part of me that can stay engaged when results are not immediate. And if I keep arriving at it empty, the danger is not that I suddenly quit. The danger is that I begin giving it leftovers. Leftover energy, leftover focus, leftover seriousness. And anything important that only gets your leftovers will eventually feel the difference. That's what I want to guard against. Because what I'm building matters too much to keep handing it the part of me that survived the day instead of the part of me that is fully present. This is what makes boring days more dangerous than they seem. Boredom rarely destroys things dramatically. It weakens them gradually. You procrastinate more easily. You delay small disciplines. You tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow. You stay consistent enough to feel responsible, but not sharp enough to feel intentional. And over time, that matters. Not because every day needs to be powerful, it doesn't, but because repeated low-energy engagements can quietly reduce the quality of what you're building. The structure may still exist, but the edge softens, the hunger fades, the seriousness becomes diluted. And that's the part I don't want to ignore, because this season is too important to let it be weakened by something as ordinary as mental flatness. I think this is the shift I'm trying to make. To stop thinking of energy as something separate from the mission. Protecting energy is part of building. How I carry myself through the day matters. How much mental leakage I allow matters. how much of myself gets drained unnecessarily matters. Because the build does not happen in theory. It happens in actual moments, actual evenings, actual decisions, actual effort. And if those moments keep receiving a weaker version of me, that becomes part of the outcome. So protecting my energy is not soft, it is not optional. It is stewardship. Stewardship of attention, stewardship of focus, stewardship of the part of me that still has to keep showing up for the future, while the present still feels ordinary. One thing I'm realizing is that I cannot just drift from one part of the day into the other. I cannot move straight from a flat, boring workday into meaningful building and expect my mind to just switch on automatically. That transition has to become intentional, because if I don't reset, the emotional residue of the day comes with me. The dullness comes with me. The boredom comes with me. The passivity comes with me. And then I wonder why the build feels harder than it should. But maybe it's not always the build itself. Maybe sometimes I never really arrived. Maybe physically I was there, but mentally I was still carrying the weight of the earlier part of the day. That means I need a clearer handoff, a way of closing one space before entering the next. Not dramatically, but consciously, because what matters deserves more than accidental energy. This may be the clearest way I can say it. The build cannot only get my leftovers. If I say this matters, if I say this future matters, if I say the vision matters, then it cannot only live on whatever scraps of attention remain after everything else has taken its share. That does not mean every day will feel strong. It won't. That does not mean I will always have ideal energy. I won't. But it does mean I need to stop accepting drained engagement as normal. Because there is a difference between being tired and being careless. There is a difference between a hard day and a passive pattern. And I want to be honest enough to see that difference. Some days will require grace, but some days will require a decision to gather myself, a decision to wake my mind back up, a decision to remind myself that what I'm building still deserves intention, even if the earlier part of the day did not. I think this is where real discipline gets tested. Not only on emotional days, not only on difficult days, not only when temptation is loud, but on boring days, flat days, uninspiring days, days where nothing dramatic happened, but everything feels slightly muted. Because those are the days where you are most likely to disengage quietly. And quiet disengagement is hard to notice. No big collapse, no obvious rebellion, just lower quality effort, less intention, less sharpness, less care. But discipline on boring days says something important. It says I do not need emotional intensity in order to stay aligned. It says I do not need the day to feel meaningful in order to show up meaningfully later. It says ordinary conditions do not get to dictate the seriousness of my build. And that matters. Because if I can protect consistency on boring days, then the structure I'm building becomes much harder to shake. I used to think the biggest cost of boring days was time. Now I'm starting to realize it may be energy. Because the real danger is not just spending hours in something that does not fully fit the life I want. The real danger is letting those hours quietly drain the part of me that still needs to build after them. And in this season, that part matters too much to ignore. So maybe the discipline of boring days is not just enduring them. Maybe it is learning how to leave them without bringing all of their dullness into the place where your real future is still being built. Because the build still needs something from me. And I do not want it living on leftovers. I'm JP, and I'll see you in the next one.